I haven't quite got this distinction as to how Egypt in some sense represents love, whereas Persia, loyalty. I think the love in Egypt is a plenty, but then there were rivers in Mesopotamia. That was plenty. That's why the civilization was there, of course. And why the Hebrew might see Eden as the confluence of those Mesopotamian rivers where they meet. I think it's something of establishment that somehow Pharaoh is not military, he's spiritual. He's seen as the one that brings the Nile flood each year and brings therefore life. And it's his journey into the Sun Kingdom that in some sense guarantees the life, the flooding of the river. Whereas in Persia, from the Scythian influence point of view, wealth and prosperity is what we take and steal from elsewhere. Well, from the Persians to begin with. Well, from the Persian point of view to begin with. Do you see that? In the Egyptian case, you come from heaven already. And in the Hebrew case, that in some sense mankind comes out of an Eden, a garden, in fact, east of Eden. But Eden, if Egypt, originally in some historic sense, Egypt represents plenty. When the rains fail and you've got famine, Egypt has still got water. Because, of course, it's the snow melt from the Central African highlands. Beyond Lake, is it Victoria and so on. The White Nile and the Red Nile and so forth. And then the soaking in the Sud. Soaking Sud. And it draining out through the Nile, north, into the Mediterranean. So Egypt is an original land of plenty, you see. But becomes barren from the point of view of the Hebrew because things going wrong anyway, being treated as, well, that's the story. And in fact, who was occupying the delta? Biblically, it's the Jews, but historically it seems to have been the sea people. Same as the Philistines. They're the sea people. And Pharaoh, being weak, has to put up with it. Seems to have contained them by sort of having a deal with them rather than conquered them. A bit like the way Persians had not so much conquered the Scythian people, but used them as the military. I think the answer of a possible relationship of love with Egypt is to do with its mythos, its
Horus and so on. I think the Green Saharan religion, theology, whatever you like to call that, was again, because of Plenty, advanced in actually caring for its citizens. Let me just read to you a paragraph of a synopsis of the ancient type of religion of Egypt. It's a complex system of polytheistic beliefs and rituals centered on a pantheon of gods and goddesses who controlled the natural world. The natural world, you notice. It was deeply entwined with Egyptian life, emphasizing the importance of cosmic order, Ma'at, the divine role of the pharaoh, and the afterlife. Daily life included prayer, rituals, offerings to the gods. Our formal religious practice was focused on the king and the temples. Do you see the role of the pharaoh and nature? It's something to do with a development of wisdom and valuing that which is, not the exploiting and pillaging and so on. A great responsibility. Pharaoh's responsible for the prosperity of the people. A bit like the Queen Victoria sort of approach. They're my people, not my serfs and resource to be exploited. It was a Tory approach as opposed to what developed to be the Conservative Party approach. Simply, a capitalist approach. I think it is that. It's in that book, Winged Pharaoh. I think she's got almost ancient Egypt right, in some sense. It's not the same by any means as the Christian exploitive view of ancient Egypt. The Old Testament view. And of course, the other great superpower around Persia was not the demonic Antichrist view of the Christian religion either. And indeed, the Jews that were deported to Babylon, so to speak, prospered. Didn't want to return. Very few returned to rebuild the temple and the city, etc. And again, that's according to the historicity. The Jesus story, I think, has its roots in the plenty and care of Egypt and the wisdom and drive of the Persian, but in the hands of people like Pythagoras and so on, produce the Platonic type of philosophy of of Greece. Alexander the Great is great in the sense that he has the Persian drive in him and the Egyptian love, trained by the philosophers Aristotle, and loving Egypt and Persia, marries the Persian king's daughter. Is seen in Egypt as the new pharaoh. Wow. And it's the mystery cults that give birth to the Mithraic and Christian stories. The God of the people, albeit in the hands of very unenlightened elites. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. I think I've got in the back of my mind that Persian is male and Egypt is female. There's probably some notion of Queen Cleopatra associated with Egypt. Yes, could be. And the Persians, they're male. It's just male in my mind. Aggression side, of course, is what's steering me, isn't it? So I see the Greek mystery cults as something of the marriage between these two, male and female. Combination of the qualities. Of course, each of the cults had his own distinction. I mean, as you would have thought, the Mithraic version for the Persians was decidedly warrior war. I mean, just the thing for any army, really. Whereas the Christian cult for the Romans was, for a civilized community from their point of view, something that had order and so on and so forth. Yes. But, abused in its construction by the state. We take Constantine as founding such interference, but just one of many, wasn't he? And the Mithraic cult similarly steered by Persian society to suit its leadership from time to time, especially when a different subgroup of the Persian Empire seized more power and so forth. Yes. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.